This is Melissa with Practically Creative. I'd like to talk to you today about some sewing tools that I use in my sewing room. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you to click that like button, subscribe and share, and maybe hit the bell icon so you know when I put up new videos. Today I'm talking about tools that I use in my sewing room, and I have quite a few spread out here in front of me, so I'm just going to go through what's laying here. We're going to start with cutting tools. And you should know I have arthritis in my hands, so a lot of the things that I use are chosen because they make it easier for me to do things with my hands. I hope that you don't have those issues, but if you do, maybe these will help. First thing that I use is I have a nice pair of Fiskars scissors, and these are great because they let you use your fingers and your whole hand instead of having to try to put your fingers into the opening of a pair of scissors. These spring back open after you make a cut, and they lock shut so that you can put them away and not have to worry about cutting yourself. These happen to say that they are razor edged, and Fiskars has a lifetime warranty on their scissors. So if you have issues with them getting dull, you can always contact Fiskars and they'll replace them. I also have a little tiny pair of embroidery scissors. These are from Ginger, and they're just small little snips. I use them for a lot of things, but the biggest thing I use them for is to cut around small items when I applique. These are great because they just require 2 fingers. You open them up, and when you're cutting out applique items, you move the fabric, not the scissors. So this works great for my hands. Doesn't leave me in pain after I use it. I also have a pair of surgical snips here. I keep one of these next to all of my sewing machines. These are great for cutting off little threads. They're also great for if you get a bobbin nest or you get a nest of thread underneath something, you just reach in there and clip it, and it just uses 2 fingers, so it doesn't hurt your wrist to use these. These are about $8 on Amazon, and I will be putting links in the show notes below for all of these items so that you can find them on Amazon or on Joann's if I didn't buy them from Amazon. This item you ladies might recognize. This is an eyebrow shaper. Kai sells a version of this. I believe they sell 3 of them for $10 roughly. The last time I looked up this link on Amazon, there were 54 for $10. I'll put the link for that in the description box. But this is great as a seam saw. If you sew together a seam and you have an error in it, you just take this and go down that seam, and it takes it apart way faster than even your seam ripper does. I also keep a pair of tweezers in my sewing room. I use these for a whole lot of things that I didn't think I would. They're great for pulling thread out from underneath your bobbin. They're great for picking threads off your shirt if you're like me and always end up wearing thread. I also use them when I weed vinyl that I cut on my Cricut, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But these are super handy to have, and mine happen to have a pointed tip. Don't know if you can see that on camera. And they squeeze together really easily, but they have a very tight opening at the end. The next thing I use is rulers. Now this one's great because it's small. You can maneuver it easily around your cutting mat, and it's 2.5 inches wide, which we all know is a very common measurement for fabric when you're cutting binding, when you're cutting squares. And there's a 1/4 inch measurement right here along this edge. You don't need an add a quarter ruler if you've got one of these. You just use that 1/4 inch measurement to check your seam, and then you don't have to worry about having an extra ruler floating around. Another thing that I use a whole lot is one of these. This is from Harbor Freight. This is a magnetic stick. It's great for picking up metal bobbins if your machine has them, for picking up pins off the floor, for picking up needles. I drop stuff a lot, and this keeps me from having to try to either get out of my chair and put a needle through my foot, or it helps me if I drop it too far out for me to be able to reach easily.